Hello everyone, this is Speeding Offense. There have been some huge changes to the game since I last put out a video, and the reason since it's been so long since my last video is because I've been trying to figure them out. Now, some of you may recall a video I put out a while back where I soloed a UAA. Now, ship's damages are way down, but nonetheless, I thought the best way to break into the new system was to set that goal for myself again. And this time around, since the Yorktown got hit pretty hard by the changes, I have picked from a series of categories I was looking for, namely a heavy escort carrier with an intel seat, the Jem'Hadar heavy escort carrier. I didn't realize when I picked it up it had the excellent fighters with it, but certainly happy about that. Now, the build I have set up on the ship is not the build I used for this run. Now, when you're doing a solo run, you tend to set up your ship a little bit different, especially when time is tight, like it was on this run. I'll start out by going through what I normally run on this ship, and then I'll go through the changes that I made for the run. Now, first off, you'll see lots of disruptors. I pulled the disruptors, coalition disruptors, off another tune. You'll notice the railgun. I got that from the new ship that comes from a railgun. I'll have it pop up on the screen there. You can get the railgun without buying the C-Store ship, but it'll still cost you, well, it'll cost you 5 chip modules if you want to do it that way. Some changes to the meta have meant that instead of a bunch of plasma dopers, which would have negated the potential of the ship because it only has 2 science consoles, since plasma dopers are a thing of the past, effectively, I'm using a bunch of basic consoles, universal consoles namely, not so much basic. Notice these are the standard pair Lobi consoles here, tachyokinetic, and the bioneural infusion circuits. Also using the assimilated module, or the Borg module. Modules like this certainly making a comeback. The temporal disentanglement suites. This is one of my old favorites. Gives a nice bonus to crit chance and severity, provided you're running a high odds level, which, as you can see, I am. And the nice Gnostican siphon capacitor, which gives a bonus to disruptor damage, as well as a couple other things that I don't really care about all that much. EPS is, well, if it's there, I'll take it, but I'm not going out of my way to get it. The extra console here, this is the console that came with the ship, and it's decent enough considering what else is out there. When I saw that this is 10% energy damage, 8% severity, I figured, that'll do just nicely. And of course, I have the elite versions of the Jem'Hadar fighters. The basic versions come with the ship, but purchasing the ship unlocks these fighters. For skills, skill hasn't changed much other than I'm no longer using control lamp and drain infection. Actually, I only have 4 points in psi, namely the 4 points to long-range targeting sensors, and 1 point in scientific readiness. Everything else, full tack ultimate, and the rest, a little bit of tank. Mostly most of the engineering stuff is to power settings. I'm running Intel over Temporal normally, and this is one of the things I changed for the run you're seeing here. Normally I'm running Intel over Temporal because I get the flanking bonus with the Intel and the atrophy bonus from Temporal. Now, for traits, not much has changed since before the patch. I might as well digress to the UAA here. You'll notice to solo a UAA, as with before, you have to get the errands in between each of the days. So that's what's going on here. That's why I'm hitting these. Instead of waiting for the end, I'm hitting them as they come. So for my trades, what I am doing, I'm running Superior Elusive. I'll get to that in a second. A Good Day to Die, Helmsman, Inspirational Leader, Last Ditch Effort, Self-Modulating Fire, Point Blank Shot, Superior Beam Training, and Operative, as this is an alien. Now, go back to the video here. You notice what I did there. Since when you kill a Bio Dreadnought, another one just spawns. So I figured since the Bio Dreadnought was already at that first location, I'd hit this one first. So that's what my sudden change of heart was all about there. And this actually pays out for me very, very well in a little bit. We'll get to that. Back to the traits though. As many of you may have noticed when I pointed out this is an alien, aliens have 10 traits. And that's the reason that I only named 9 is because one of those is one that I switched out. I'm using Biotech Patch in this run, which I'll get back to. The one I normally run is, to be honest, I forget. I'm probably actually going to leave it on Biotech Patch because it worked out very well as far as keeping me alive. Now, for Starship traits. For Starship traits, I'm running Emergency Weapon Cycle, All Hands on Deck, Supremacy, Reciprocity, and Improved Critical Systems. Now, the reason I'm using Reciprocity is I'm using no further cooldown reduction on this ship for my tactical systems. So, in order to keep everything on cooldown, I'm using Reciprocity, hence the Superior Elusive I mentioned earlier. The more misses, the more cooldowns I get. Now that, as far as the differences between the previous run, or how I normally set up my ship, and how I set up my ship in this run, might as well go through it now. I'm not using Reciprocity in this run. I found that I was not able to finish this run without dying. Set up as I just said. I had to go with Temporal over Strategist. Well, Temporal over anything really. That continuity saved my life a couple times in this. And so I went with Temporal as my primary. And as long as you're going with Temporal as a primary, you might as well go with Strategist as a secondary. The threat that I'm getting in this run, which I wouldn't want in an ISA, is not a problem here, because I'm the only ship here. I'm going to be taking all of the threat anyway. And with that settled, instead of Reciprocity, I'm using Retaliation, which is the trait of Paladin, which if you have for a Fed Tune, and you trade it once, you get it for all your ADS. And you're wrong. Now, for both, that's the sum total of the differences between the current build I'm using and the build I used in this video. Now, for the improved critical systems, you'll see that I'm running both an emergency power to engines and an emergency power to aux. And in this particular build, where I have the strategist set up, I can actually rely on the threat cooldowns alone to make sure that these both get cooled down to global. And you'll notice that they're both running all of the time. Now that's just not the case if I'm not running a strategist. I'm running Intel over Temporal. I also have to run a pair of DOFs to keep that active. And those DOFs are different. They are damage control engineers. Chance to reduce the recharge time for emergency power to subsystem abilities. Now I'm running 2 of them, and every time I hit an emergency power ability, both of them have a chance to proc. And since I'm hitting emergency power abilities once every 15 seconds, that chance to proc is actually very, very high. And I don't even need them both. I don't even need one to proc each time. I just need in one cycle, that is one run of both the emergency powered aux and emergency power of 2 engines, for one of them to proc, and I'm set. Let's go to bridge setup. I'm sure I missed something now. We'll get back to it. So the Starship stations, these are exactly what I use normally and what I used in this mission. You'll see I have my 2 emergency power abilities as well as an aux to SIF. Between my science stations, I have a hazard emitters and a polarized hull. For my lieutenant science stations, and indeed my lieutenant intel station there, I have 3 debuffs. The DRB, I guess the DRB will do a little bit of damage, but this ship doesn't have much in the way of EPG. The DRB that is there for the stacking debuff, as well as the sensor analysis 2 for a spreading debuff, and the ionic turbulence 2, which is an area of effect debuff. Now, when you look at my firing line with a chemotech FOB beta, both the chemo and the beta are also debuffs. So of my 13 stations here, 5 of them are debuffs. Now you may notice on the right side of my screen is where I have a good number of those abilities. You may also have noticed that, much to my surprise, the NPCs have somehow taken down the Bio Dreadnought. This very fortuitous for me. Not entirely. I've never seen that before, to be honest. But lucky me, I got down here, and going to a different lane instead has definitely paid off. Is this a little unfair to call this a solo? Well, no. It is still a solo run. It just got really, really lucky. As it stands, I can take on a Bio Dreadnought. It's a question of time. I don't. I'm sure if I had to actually take down a Bio Dreadnought, I would have come up shy, not by much, but by just enough. Now where was I? Oh yes, the abilities on the side. You'll notice I have both of my hull heals, I guess, and the SIF, aux to SIF. So all 3 of my heals, as well as both of my emergency power abilities and my launch fighters, all there. And what I'm doing, and I do this in all of my ships to some extent, is I'm using a macro which is constantly hitting the keys 5 through 0, which is why tray 1 is actually the tray on the right. It also means, you notice where my batteries are, I can reach those batteries with the 1 and 2 key without them taking up space on my bar. You'll also notice that I seem to be not using batteries probably as much as I should, although against these enemies it doesn't really speed things up much. The one thing I did leave on my actual bar as far as heals go is, well, not really a heal, but is the polarized health, which I use as needed. And yeah, this is some total of it. I'll use the brace for impact as well, of course. And of course, you've seen me using the go down fighting over and over. I can do that because of the good day to die trait mentioned earlier. I see my clock is ticking down a little bit quicker than expected. I didn't expect to be able to do all this much with chat. Of course, I probably already bored most of you to death, but go through my space reputation. I'm running auxiliary power configuration for both defensive and offensive. I'm using precision and advanced targeting systems. 2 excellent traits, must have on most builds. And because it's harder to stay alive these days, the active hull hardening. For the active reputation, standard fare. The anti-time disentanglement, the biomolecular shield generator, the quantum singularity, and deploy sensor interference platform. They're not all that important, but they're the kind of thing that if you have them, well, of course you're going to use them. Now, as for my docs, this is a Romulan alien, so all 5 of my docs are SROs. Big fan of the SROs, of course. For my duty officers, in addition to the 2 damage control engineers I mentioned earlier, I have a pair of blue quality stacking crit chance bots. A bot for reducing the recharge time for evasive mirrors, and a quartermaster to reduce the recharge time on all batteries. Now, of course, that couples with the extended duration on batteries that I get from the skill tree. Now, after having mentioned that I was ahead of schedule, it looks like I've gone through pretty much everything I need to say about the build itself. Hopefully this has been exhaustive, but not too tedious. If you're wondering about the visuals, I'm really reaching for straws here, eh? If you're wondering about the visuals on the Jem'Hadar ship, that's the Aegis shield with the Aegis engines. Very much a fan of how that what that did for the visuals. That's the gold line you see on it that comes from the Aegis set, as well as the effects from the engines. Also, you'll have noticed from my setup earlier that I am still using the Iconian 3-piece. That has become less and less popular, and I do believe a lot of that, well, the main reason is you don't get stacking buffs, team buffs past 3, and 1 or 2 players in the match will easily achieve 3 levels of the Ico set 3-piece bonus, which is, well, it used to be plus 15% each, now it's plus 10. So if 1 or 2 players has the Ico set, and that's usually the case, it's very rare that at least someone didn't show up with an Ico set. A lot of the high scores up there are set by people who haven't been bringing the Ico sets. They've been bringing, well, I don't know, probably the CC deflector. Sooner or later, I'm actually going to have to ask them how they're getting these scores. This ship has been hitting in the mid-90s. My highest was with a cannon boat at 129, and that was with the 3-piece Iconian set. And what I'm using is the 3-piece Iconian set with a fleet warp core, or in the case of my high score, singularity core, because that was with HIF. And this is the one I like. My personal favorite. Gives us some engine as well as auxiliary. Warp core efficiency, which boosts powers at low levels. Of course, you get amp in there as well. And that's because, in the case of these builds, I'm using Supremacy. Now, if you're running Attack or Aside without Supremacy, there is one that I do prefer. It gives a decrease in weapons power cost. Hopefully I've thought ahead and put it up on the screen there. I have that on the tunes that I don't have Supremacy and aren't engineers. Obviously, if you're an engineer, power just really isn't an issue. So, so those are the 2 that I'm using. Supremacy, of course, is one of those huge trades. I mean, it's what the Leech used to be. You can see my continuity's already long since procced here. So right now I'm crossing my fingers, and you see on the right 30, 29, 28. But I do get it. Just barely. There she goes. And you guys also may have noticed that the right lane is where the second dreadnought showed up, and it actually managed to start pushing that lane down a bit. So despite the fact the map is done, we can't have that, right? We can't just leave it sitting out there. So off we go. And you'll see I'll hit it with all my debuffs as quickly as possible. Unless I contradict myself. There we go. And presumably swing the nose in again. I don't know. I haven't watched the entirety of this video again yet. As you can see, the ship doesn't really have much trouble with the Bio-Dreadnought. Really, the main reason I decided to avoid it was not a question of whether or not I could take it on. It was a question of time. And you can see from how long that took there, I would not have been able to kill it if and still finish the mission in time. So there we have a build that can solo UAA in the post-patch game environment. In this case, a Jem'Hadar heavy escort carrier. Very nice looking one, if I do say so myself. I'm planning at some point to create another video on a budget build in the new paradigm. Stay tuned for that. But until then, thanks for watching.